You're listening to The Marketing Trench, the official podcast where no real estate professional gets left behind in the pursuit of building a business they can be proud of. A podcast designed to help you build the foundation of a powerful real estate career. Join real estate experts Ricardo Bueno, Marketing Technology Director at West, Dustin Stevie, CEO of Lighthouse Escrow, and Scott Shang, partner at Bywise Mortgage and founder of Find My Way Home, as they bring you real-world strategies, marketing ideas, and solutions straight from the trench.
I gotta cut that out.
Are we recording?
We're recording.
We are recording.
So I'm here with Ricardo Bueno, who's Marketing and Technology Director at West, and Princess Scott Shang, whose armrests on his chair have been bothering him, causing much consternation. So today we're going to dig into the subject here on the Marketing Trench podcast of money, specifically the amount of money that you're spending, we're all spending, for the tools that we talk about here on the show, or for ad spend, just in general. And to kind of frame up the conversation, it's not easy to make financial purchase decisions. And once you've made those decisions, it feels really hard to back away from one, right? So for example, in my case, I have spent a lot of time looking at CRMs and thinking about the costs of them. And, I get really kind of hesitant about it. Then I pull the trigger. Then I drop a bunch of money on a CRM. And then once the CRM doesn't work, I don't want to stop dropping money on it, because then I feel like I've wasted all the money, right? That's called a sunk cost. And that's just one example of problems with spend that we all kind of run into. So today's podcast is going to be us just working through and thinking out loud. This is really going to be a kind of digging in the trench, sifting through some stuff, and hopefully coming up with a couple of nuggets of gold. So that's the framing of it. Scott, you have spent quite a bit of money over the years on various tools, because you're very experimental, probably more than the average mortgage broker. So I'm going to toss it to you first and just say, as you're sitting down and working through the tools you want to spend money on, are there any questions you're asking yourself, or any ways that you've developed over time to decide what a good spend is and what not a good spend is?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I was wondering where we're going to go with this. You're so awesome at setting these up. It's I absolutely have matured over the years with my perception of what this is. I think initially, especially new businesses, or especially if you're going into when it comes to sales and marketing, a lot of it is pay and pray, right? You're like, I'm going to pay this money, and I'm praying that it's going to do what they say it's going to do.
Yeah.
And that's
a lot of new agents today, especially.
Absolutely, because there's so many cool technologies out there. There's so many cool things that have awesome features. And they're like, if you just pay this amount of money, then this is going to happen. But as I matured, I went from pay and pray to R&D. So then it was specific. It was like when I look at a tool, it has to fit. It has to meet certain rules. It has to fit into what I'm already doing. It has to augment, and it has to amplify, or it has to automate something that I'm already doing in my business. And if this tool saves me this much time, or allows me to connect these two dots in a way that doesn't require human intervention, thus eliminating the time that you spend and the potential for mistakes. So there's those cracks in your process, with your sales process, your marketing process, or even just your operations process, right? So that's Dustin's created a paperless escrow company. There are escrow companies over there that you could walk into their office, and it looks like what was the Jim Carrey movie where he was God and he had all the Post-its that were lined up? And it literally they were all the prayers or whatever. You can go into these buildings, and they have stacks and stacks of folders and stuff, and a human being has to go through there, find the right paper, deliver it at the right time. And that's a scenario where automation And technology improves efficiencies. It decreases the opportunity for mistakes or things falling through the cracks, and it helps you stay on a timeline and be more organized.
Bruce Almighty, by the way.
Bruce Almighty. That's what I was going for. For some reason, I was going with the Evan Almighty. Isn't that Steve Carroll's version? Yeah, I love that guy too. So that's really where you should be putting costs into things that are going to create efficiencies and decrease cost by improving efficiencies.
Yeah.
Right. Creating a better experience for the client. Well, sometimes it costs more to create a better experience for the client. It really comes down to what is your goal? And all of our goals should be to create the best possible client experience, because your gold is in your repeat and your referral business from your past clients.
One of those products, one of the products that we are a fan of right now is a product called Client Giant. And what Client Giant does is they deliver a experience for a customer when a transaction goes into escrow. So they have small, medium, and large plans, or they have like silver, bronze, gold, and platinum plan. When a transaction goes into escrow, what Client Giant does, it's a concierge service that takes over. They'll mail your client on your behalf a closing gift that says, "Hey, Dustin, thank you so much for trusting us in this process. Just want to let you know you're in good hands. We're going to walk you through all the way through to closing." 2 weeks later, it sends them another personalized gift and says, "Hey, Dustin, we're in the home stretch. Here are some moving boxes, and I've already taken care of transferring your utilities from your current residence to your new one." And then about 30 days into the process, it sends another personalized card, and it says, "Hey, Dustin, I've taken the liberty of taking care of one of the following 4 for you. Do you want a house cleaning service for a month? Do you want a gardener? Do you want a handyman service for a couple hours, or do you want to get your car detailed?" Most people choose the car detail. The truck comes and details your car in the driveway. And then once the transaction closes, if you chosen the platinum plan, what it does is it'll send a thank you card, and it'll say, "Thank you so much for trusting us with your transaction. Just as a way to say thanks, wanted to let you know that I've taken care of dinner for 2 at a place of your choosing. A car will come pick you up, drive you to dinner, tabs on me, and I'll drop you back off." And it's like,
oh my goodness,
it's amazing. It's amazing because every agent that's ever, it's not cheap, but every agent that's ever used it, the feedback was from one of their clients was, "Oh my God, I will never use another realtor again. You've went above and beyond and you've outdone yourself."
Right. Here at Lighthouse, we talk about how you want to aim for glow, because if you make people glow, your business grows.
Right.
And that's like glow on nuclear energy. That's incredible.
Well, so what this comes down to is recognizing the lifetime value of a client. Because when you're talking about, you have certain fixed costs, you have overhead, you have fixed costs.
But it's easy to think, it's easy to get stuck on, if you're not making a lot, you're just thinking about the commission. Well, I don't want to spend any more money. I really need that money. And
no, it's absolutely, but that's the mindset of an unsuccessful entrepreneur.
Yeah. Why? Why is that the mindset of an unsuccessful entrepreneur?
Because it's only about you, and it's not about your client. It's not about the experience. You're not bringing anything good into the world. You're just trying to put money in your pocket. And it's a simple shift in perspective. Mindset. If that's what you want to do, that's cool. Put yourself in a position where you can make plenty of money on a team or doing something like that. But if you're running a business, if you want a long-term business, it's not about you. It's about it's about the experience you create for your clients. Because again, so if this is we kind of wanted to go into this as money management, right? So what is the cost of doing business? The investment, if the investment in its investment and its return on investment, but it's what is that return on investment? If the return on investment isn't a commission check, that is evidence of you completing a task. That's not something that's going to necessarily grow your business. And the shorter minded your mindset, the shorter your vision, the higher your operational costs are going to be. Because
oh wow, hold on, you just blew my mind with that observation, because it's totally keep going.
You interrupted me. I don't know what to say. No. So no, but it's so true because you're reinventing the wheel every single time.
Because you have to. You're jumping. You're chasing transaction after transaction, and because you're not investing in the client experience, you're not setting yourself for success with repeat and referral business.
And creating that long-term nurture machine for your prospects that you haven't already, that you're not doing business with yet. And having that long-term mindset, which we talked about in previous podcasts, is having a CRM, having nurturing systems, having automation systems. You take all of that and you have a certain amount of fixed costs, and then you have your investment costs. But the most important part of that is how do you get a return on that? And your return on that is not transactional. Your return on that is the experience that you deliver to your customers so that you increase the lifetime value of that client. And the lifetime value of that client is not just them doing business with you again. It's them telling everybody that they know that they had the most unbelievable experience with you that they could possibly have. And this goes to our fountain concept that we were talking about.
I have a broker in Chino who in a 7 or 8 month period got 6 referrals from one past client.
Right. So how much would you invest in that? So now think about this. Would you go in the hole? Would you go negative and not get a commission check to close that transaction for that client if the opportunity presented itself to you? So if you were like, oh man, this thing went sideways, something went wrong, I'm going to have to give up my commission to get this person into that house, and then that person goes and refers 6 people to you, you just made an investment in the experience that you deliver to the consumer.
Okay, so all this feels really great, but I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who maybe has lost their way, or they feel like they're not making enough money and they're under financial stress, like they need every dollar of their commission check. They get the concept, right? Like you pour love into people and you're going to get more business, but it doesn't, like, you can sort of right brain emotionally, assent to it, but your left brain's like, I got a P&L. So now with that person in mind, we're sitting in front of a tool like Client Giant and we're trying to make a decision. So, how would you make the decision to spend? Give me an idea. Like, what is the basic package for Client Giant cost?
I think $699, and it goes all the way up to $2,000.
Okay, so let's assume someone's like, you know what, $700 out of my commission check. So you're this person I just described. You're looking at Client Giant. How do you make that decision, especially if you're feeling financially strapped?
I would just say that what was it? Einstein says you can't continue to do the same things you've always done and expect different results. If you're in a position where you're stressed about investing in the client experience, then you're thinking about your business wrong. You won't get out of that loop. That's a feedback loop. That's a mental feedback loop that you're convincing yourself that I need this next paycheck. That's somebody that needs some help with growing a business.
No, but even going back, because I do a lot of office presentations or local boards. I meet a lot of new agents who always say, Ricardo, here's this great website. I want to sign up for this website. I almost always tell everybody now, 4 years ago, I tell you, yep, you absolutely need a website. Today, my perspective has kind of changed. There's a lot of other things you need a website, but I guess what I go out and I tell people, and Scott, you've said this a lot, is get everything you can out of what you've already got. So I'm a proponent of using stuff that's member benefit through the MLS. And I'm a huge proponent of using stuff that's quote unquote member benefit and being provided by your broker before you go and spend money on anything else. And there's a lot of technology that both the MLS provides for free and that your brokerage provides for free. And where a lot of people get stuck is, well, I don't want to use the tools my broker provides because I don't want them to keep my data. Like I have the same problem with some of the reps over at our sister company. They don't want to use a CRM because they don't want the company to have their data. What they don't know is that when somebody opens or runs title, the company already has that data. whether you put it into the CRM or not, the company already has that data.
It's a scarcity mindset.
It's a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Again, going back, it's just use the tools that are accessible to you before you chase down investing in a technology because you think that's going to grow your business.
So I really love what you said there about, getting everything you can out of everything you got. I've been in that place many times where I had that scarcity mindset. And you're right, Scott, it's a vicious loop. Like, it's hard to get out of it. And it's a feedback loop, and it amplifies in your head over time. Mm-hmm. And Ricardo and I have, and I'm sure you two both have sat down with plenty of people who are clearly in the throes of that, feeling pain. And it's like, okay, you need to have a mindset shift from, oh my goodness, I don't have any money. The business my pipeline is like, it is not full. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills, all that. You have to shift your mindset to an abundance mindset. And to Ricardo's point, one way you can do that is by stepping back, looking at everything you've built so far and saying, how much of this do I actually really need? Right? So, you feel like I have no money. And this is even in personal lives. I'm sure you guys have seen this. Scott, I bet you've seen this a bunch with doing mortgage applications, loan applications. People are like, I'm broke. I have no money. I need to make more money. And then you step back with them and you're like spending all of this money over here and you're getting almost how's that gym membership treating you is a classic example.
Well, Ricardo and I do these classes, and a lot of times we'll just say, raise your hand if something's hitting your credit card every month that you haven't logged into in the last 6 months. And hands always go up. And we're like, cool, cancel that. You just paid for this class and some.
Right.
Now take that money and put it somewhere else. It's amazing. I mean, entrepreneurs are dreamers, and it's amazing how much we will pay for false hope. It's how much we'll invest into a dream when it's not about that. Money is a byproduct of you doing an amazing job and bringing something good into the world and creating something for your client. It's evidence of you doing a good job. It's not what your goal is. Right? Your goal should be, I want to help these people. I want to create this experience. I want them to have the dream of home ownership. If that's where you're focused, you look at the single most successful people and they create an experience for their consumer, for their client, that client then goes and talks about and tells everybody about. If you just got somebody into a home, they would not refer 6 people to you. It's how you got them into a home. It's how you got them into a mortgage. That's where you invest your money. You invest your money in the client experience because the return on that is so many times over.
I think that's underrated, and it's something that's rarely talked about. Or when it's talked about, it's just talked about kind of passively.
Well, because it's a little bit cheesy. It's that whole, you got to have a mindset and all that kind of thing.
Think and grow rich.
Yeah. No, but it's so true. I mean, it's what it also has, we brought stuff in a different way. Who do you surround yourself with? Yeah. Who's your mentor? Who are you talking to about your business? Are you hanging out with a bunch of people that are always buying the latest and greatest thing and that aren't successful? Or are you talking to people that are you going to somebody and saying, hey, you seem to have a really successful business. Talk to me about what your systems are. How do you invest in your client? How do you structure your business? I think a lot of these, I know myself, at least my personal experience is when I was struggling the most and spending the most, it was when I was inside my own head. And I thought I was the only one that can do this and I have to do everything. And it was until you let go and you kind of pull back and you start talking to other people that are saying, no, that stuff's really not as important as you think it is. Mm-hmm. Well, the best thing one of my coaches says is, you're not nearly as important as you think you are. Step back, put together the system, start focusing on the client experience and the consumer experience. And it's never about you. It's always about the consumer. It's always about the client experience, because that's where you're going to make most of your money. And are you spending money or are you investing in your business?
That's how you should
look
at it.
That's a really, really big difference in perspective.
Let's really define that, because I want someone to walk out of this podcast with a clear a clear matrix to be able to say, am I spending or am I investing? So what are some signs of spends versus what are signs of investments?
Okay, so I'm going to spend money on Facebook ads, or am I investing in building a long-term database that I can then nurture and get more business from it in the future? I think a lot of people do short-term activities and spend money on short-term activities without recognizing what the investment is in the future.
We get told time and time again, at least I do, I've run ads before, they didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's, again, we talked about it. You're looking at it like you expected it to deliver an instant commission check. You didn't think about the work and the long-term nurture that goes into it. We had a client, he signed up for Boomtown, used it for 6 months, canceled it. Signed up for Commissions Inc., used it for 6 months, canceled it. Signed up for system after system after system, says, I got about 3,000 leads, but they're not any good. I'm like, no, dude, they're all the exact same system. There's actually gold in that database. There's money in that database. You just never bothered to nurture it.
So going back to our podcast on expectations, one thing in the decision matrix that distinguishes between a spend and an investment is a spend is predicated on unrealistic expectations. An investment has clear expectations, and you know where it fits into something Scott had said earlier. It amplifies, it automates or it amplifies something you're currently doing. So you know the role it's supposed to play very clearly.
Yeah. And you're going to have spend in a business. You're going to have overhead. You're going to have fixed costs that are just the cost of doing business. So that's your foundation. That's your foundation. You take that, you know that every single deal you do is going to help cover that. Then you've got profit. And then that comes to, am I taking every single paycheck and going out with my friends and buying a bunch of toys, or do I have am I investing that back into my business in order to create a better experience or create more automation or invest in tools or tactics or strategy or hire better people so that then you can, so that then in the long run, not in the long run, but just further out than a transactional mindset to an experiential, I'm building a business mindset. And so you have to always be reinvesting part of that revenue back into your business to create a better experience. And sometimes it's investing it into your past clients, right? How do I invest in my past clients so I can get more of those referrals? Again, so many people don't understand the absolute gold mine. How many old school agents do you know that just don't prospect anymore? Their entire business is just repeat and referral business, right? And it's like, but they've been in business for 10, 15, 20 years in the same place, and they're just going out there.
Joe Stepanenko.
Yeah, there's and even Edie, well, she works pretty hard still, but a lot of that business, people just plug away, and well, that was funny because Joe told us this story because that's exactly how her business is. She's been successful for a very long time. And she was sending out these newsletters and she thought nobody was paying attention to them. And so she stopped doing it. She started getting phone calls and emails and people were disappointed that they didn't hear from her. They're like, is everything okay? I missed your newsletter. But she was reinvesting into maintaining those relationships. Hey, I'm still here. Here's even if it's a freaking recipe card. You know, people downplay that stuff, but it's a touch. So I think when you're talking about investing, there's a couple of things. There's what's your cost per acquisition? So what is your total expenses divided by the number of transactions that you're doing? How much does it cost you before you even get a client? So what's all of your overhead? Maybe it's $600, right? So you've got to look at that. And you talk about doing a P&L, you absolutely have to do the math on this, on your business model. And if you're spending, if you're automatically going into every single transaction, I need a minimum of 5 transactions a month, and each one of those transactions costs me $1,000 a month because of my overhead and my operations before I even do any additional marketing, you probably need to take another look at how you're running your business, because your foundational cost per acquisition is already too high. So putting additional, and it depends on what marketplace you're in too. So you bring up a really good point. We're kind of talking about mindset. We're talking about some of this stuff, but you need to know your P&L. You have to know your numbers. You have to know how much you're spending. You have to know what just your base foundational operational costs are.
Let's itemize some of those real quick. So you got rent, you've got whatever licensing fees,
Yep.
you've got your insurances.
Yep.
If you employ anyone, you have payroll.
You have employees. Yep.
Yeah, you got your payroll and all that goes into that. I'm right now. I'm just going through my
all of your software systems,
right?
Everything
Technology.
that runs the technology that runs your business. There's
That's where you can minimize a lot of that if you use stuff that's member benefit.
Exactly, and if you're not investing things that are promising, false hope.
Right.
If you're not, if you're truly looking at it, what's the bare minimum that I need in order to run my business? And then you start reinvesting. And when you're reinvesting that money into your business, reinvest that money into the client experience so that you're generating more, so that you're getting more from that long term. It's really that vision. It's having that vision, having that, if I do this today, what does my business look like in three years from today?
Yeah, so move some of that money around your P&L, right? So for example, if your P&L is really heavy on the software side, you're spending thousands of dollars a month on various tools. That's a place where, to Ricardo's point, you can comb through it and maybe change up those tools and shift it, to your point, Scott, to client experience. Or let's talk about a common line item on many real estate agents' P&L. The BMW 7 Series.
I was just going to bring that up. Where are you spending your personal? How much money do you need a month to maintain the appearance that you're successful?
Yeah, and is that this is right here, a difference between spend versus investment, and a lot of us get into our heads. Well, I could get a suit off the rack, but a custom suit helps me stand out, or the car is the bigger one, right? Like I could drive a nice GMC, but I really need a BMW to showcase to clients that I'm, to signal, right? It's signaling. It's like,
but you know what? I think that was way more important 25 years ago than it is today. I don't know that necessarily. I mean, it's going to depend on your market and who your market is, but I don't think the generations today care about all that stuff. I think they see through the superficiality of the appearance. I don't think I'm not in I'm not necessarily in that demographic, but when I see somebody that has flashy clothes and a big gold watch and a big car, I'm like, holy crap, who paid for all of that stuff? Am I expected to pay for all of that stuff?
Yeah, that's a good observation.
I'd rather most of us aren't impressed by that stuff anymore. It's just like, listen, are you a good guy or not? Are you a good person? Do you care about me? Let's have a conversation here. They don't care about whether you look flashy. I mean, I think
you got to look put together.
Yes. You can't go in there looking like me.
All casual. You got to look put together.
Yes.
Your car should be clean. It should be comfortable if you're driving clients around.
Yes. But now it's probably more important that you have a Prius than a Mercedes. So somebody cares about the environment.
Yeah, depending. Yeah, but like signaling, if your quote unquote investment in your business is primarily dedicated to signaling, that's probably not the highest and best use of your dollar. And so the question is,
it's expensive to maintain that illusion.
To your point, it's like really one way that you can kind of comb through your P&L. You have like the category of necessity. Mm-hmm. You have to, probably you have to pay rent and your insurances and whatever. Although even in the case of rent now, with things like WeWork, maybe you can figure out a better solution than what you currently have.
I wouldn't go anywhere near WeWork.
Well, WeWork might be a bad example given what's going on with them. But there are plenty of co-working spaces which are nice and cheaper than like a Regis, for example, or something.
Spaces.
Yeah, spaces. There are plenty of them versus taking on the overhead of an office. But what I'm saying is, you got your necessity. Then you got the other category of, investment in clients. And it's like, okay, what percentage of your monthly outgo, of your monthly expenses is going to things like that 7 Series? And if it's, if you're looking at it, you're like, actually, given how much a 7 Series is costing me, it's right around 25, 30%. It's like, really, it shouldn't be that high. Like what could you do if you freed up 10% of that and invested in something like Client Giant? How, like, relatively the impact, what would it make on your business?
Well, and what this also comes to is being realistic with yourself on where you are at in your business. So if you're just starting off, you don't need to be flashy. You're not going to fake it till you make it. Doesn't work in the world of communication that we have today. It's not impressing anybody. If you're starting your business, don't go out there and necessarily be a renegade if you don't have an MBA and you don't know how to run a P&L and all of that stuff. Join a team until you build your business and you learn from somebody else. You have to be realistic with yourself as well. And that is also investing in your future by sharing costs with somebody else. And to Ricardo's point, are you in a situation where you have benefits of being on a team or of joining a particular MLS or an association? Do they provide benefits that they're able to do collective bargaining and reduce the price as though if I were have to go out there and invest in all that stuff individually. And that stuff is really, really important. And if you do that, and we talked about this in another podcast, a lot of times there's great support communities around those benefits because everybody's using them, so you can use them more efficiently. So the money that you are spending on it, you're leveraging to get a higher return on that investment.
Yeah. So I actually have a client. I'm going to push back a little bit on the unimportance of Flash. I have a client who I was talking to last week. He came in. He does deals up in Beverly Hills, and he said, a couple of my clients were talking to me, and they said it's time for you to invest in a nice watch. And I'm like, really? Why? And he said, well, Dustin, honestly, the places I go, one of the first things they do is they take a look at their watch on your wrist.
And then your shoes.
And then your shoes. But we were talking about the watches in this case. And he said, they can identify a fake from a real thing.
Yeah.
And it matters to them. Now, the takeaway I drew from that was your clients will give you the feedback and tell you when you maybe need to up your spend on the Flash. They'll tell you, hey, like maybe it's time for a watch. Or, they'll tell you, hey, you had great service, but honestly, I almost didn't hire you because when you showed up, your suit was like hanging off of you like a tent, right? Barnum and Bailey wore it better.
Timex don't cut it here, Chief.
Right, exactly. but and I don't know about, what you guys have seen out there, but in my experience, that rings true. Like our clients start signaling to us when it's time to up our financial spend on something that creates a,
and that's
certain markets,
image.
And that's also knowing your client. That's knowing your client, and it's because that is specifically creating a customer experience. That customer, its aesthetics are important to that customer. They need to know that you're successful. They see themselves as having a certain level of success, and they don't want to work with somebody who doesn't have that level of success. So that's knowing your client, and that's all about crafting your client experience. If you're going online leads and you're dealing with millennials, and you show up in a 3-piece suit and a Jag and a $20,000 Rolex, they're going to be like, well, that's not what I was expecting. How'd you pay for all that stuff?
Right. What's my commission?
Yeah. So it's knowing it's knowing the client. And then you say, okay, well, to list your house, it's going to be 6%. They're going to be, okay, I see why.
Right. Yeah.
So it really is it's knowing your consumer, and it's not one size fits all. It's part of the customer experience, determining who you're doing business with, what their expectations are. Don't try to trick people into stuff. They care more about character than they do about anything else.
I had another client. We just talked about an example of a client who needed to spend more because, he needed to up his Flash game. I had another client, though, going back to the poverty versus scarcity mindset, who came to me and, we tried to roll out Ricardo and I recommended some tools, and Ricardo was helping him roll out some tools. he just was totally mired in the scarcity mindset, 100%. And every time I would talk to him about what was going on with him, he'd say, he's a loan guy. Honestly, it's just all about rates. Just all about rates. Just all about rates. I can't compete on the rates. So finally I said to him, you know what? Stop spending money on all the marketing stuff because you don't believe in your own product. Like, you need to go to a place where you feel like you have the best rates. And he finally, after all this time, just this week, made a move to a company that has the lowest rates that he can possibly get into for the market he's serving. And now he feels like now he's starting to get into the abundance mindset. He got out of that scarcity loop because he took in, when he was looking at his ad spend, and part of it too, by the way, to tie this into the money side, he wasn't bringing in enough loan business to justify any of his spends because he didn't have confidence that once he got the business in, he could keep it. So understanding that part, sometimes it's not about the spend. Sometimes it's about the fact that you're spending all this money, but you don't believe in the outcome. So you need to stop spending the money until you got a clear outcome that you can believe in.
Well, also, if you're worried about something like that, your customer is somebody that only cares about numbers. If you're not bringing more value to the transaction, you can have, if you think it's all about rates, then you think that there's absolutely zero value in who you are, or your experience, or your ability to help that person make the right decision based on your experience. Right. And it has the same thing to do with discount real estate agents. You see a lot of real estate agents that say, I'm going to do 1%, or I'm going to do, I'm going to give this much back. And that's great. And that's good in a certain situation. And it's good in every situation if you also bring more to the table. But again, it's that scarcity mindset where you are assuming that is the single most important thing to the consumer. The consumer wants a good deal, but they also want to get the deal done. And they also want to feel like they made the right decision by working with you. And somebody who's only worried about rates, they're not going to get any repeat and referral business from that client, right? Because there is always a lower rate. Or let's put it this way, there's always a lower rate advertised.
Right.
And there's always somebody who's in a call center somewhere that's willing to say, oh yeah, we can give you a lower rate, until they get to the closing table. So it's
where it's too late to.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of veered off into a different topic, but I kind of want to still root this in where I think you wanted to go with this is know your numbers. Mm-hmm. Know your numbers, know your customer, know what the expectations of your customer is, and then be mindful of what you're investing in specifically. Are you investing in the long-term success of your business?
Does this product save me time or make me money?
Yeah. Yeah. And then being as efficient as you possibly can on your operational expenses, and investing as much as you can to get more out of what you've got, which is a client, a satisfied client. And how much are you getting out of that satisfied client is going to be determined by the amount of investment. And it's not monetary investment. It's emotional investment. It's the experiential investment that you make into that client. Every dollar you put in, you should know how many dollars you're going to get out. And you should be able to tie it directly to that.
Yeah, I mean, that is a fantastic way to wrap it up, I think. So if you are somebody who's listening to this episode and you are feeling like maybe you're stuck in the scarcity mindset and you can conceive the prosperity mindset, but you don't know how to get there realistically from where you are. Or if you're somebody who's listening to this podcast and you've done this, you've combed through P&Ls, you've made decisions, you've made cuts, you've realized how you kind of bought into whatever the get rich quick stuff was in the industry, and you spent the money on it, realized, you know what, I needed to cut that and I needed to invest in things that mattered long-term, right? To bring value into the world, not just put money in your pocket. We would love to hear your stories. So check out
if you think we're completely wrong.
Yeah, 100%. If you think we're completely wrong, absolutely weigh in. Check out the show notes to see where the community conversations are happening. We will meet you there and talk some more. Until next time, this has been the Marketing Trench Podcast.
Yeah.